Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for the stick. I had a cycling accident over the summer. I was hit by a car at 30 miles an hour, which isn't quite as fast as Mike's 750. So I think he wins that one. Good afternoon. Yes, I'm here to talk about hydrogen fuel cells. I've called it Hype or Hope. Essentially, what are hydrogen fuel cells? Why are they so hard? And also, when are they coming? Both for passenger car applications and for commercial applications too. So let's give this a go. There we go. I know, car companies know that whenever we mention hydrogen fuel cells and hydrogen fuel whatsoever, the Hindenburg comes up. We can't get away from it. Car companies know that they can't get away with it. Interestingly, this is actually driving a lot of the safety developments with hydrogen fuel cell, as we'll see. Car companies are going for belt and braces and making it as safe as possible because this is what people think first and foremost. What car companies would like you to think about is one of these. Now, this is a Toyota Mirai. It's the UK's best-selling hydrogen fuel cell car. As you can see, you get the green flash on the license plate because it's not just electric cars that can use that. It's any car that is zero emissions, and this certainly is zero emissions, as we shall see. It's a really cool car. It looks fantastic. It's won design awards with my own organisation, World Car Awards, and yeah, we love it. We think it's a fantastic thing. Not just cars, though. This is a hydrogen fuel cell van. It's a Citroën parent company. Stellantis is also rolling out Vauxhall versions and Peugeot versions, as we'll see. Yeah, hydrogen is coming to commercial applications as well, and this is perhaps even more exciting than some of the passenger car applications. So what is hydrogen fuel cell? Well, technically they're called fuel cell EVs or FCEVs. That's because, to all intents, it's an electric car. A fuel cell is no different in terms of operation to an electric car. The only difference is, instead of carrying batteries, the hydrogen produces the electricity on board by combining hydrogen and oxygen. So you don't lug around batteries, you just have a fuel cell and some hydrogen, and the magic happens in the fuel cell stack, and it really is quite special stuff. And the only tailpipe emission is water. And interestingly, I've been on a Honda fuel cell launch, and one of the engineers, just to show us how safe it was, put a glass by the tailpipe, left it for 10 minutes, we finished our press conference, then he drank it. And he's still alive. He didn't throw up or anything because it is literally just pure clean water. And here's a graphic just to show you what's below the surface. You don't have to worry about the stuff at the front. That's basically an electric drive motor. The fuel cell is in the middle in this example. As you can see, it's tiny and they get smaller all the time. The Toyota that we saw earlier, the fuel cell is the size of a briefcase. And in the back, we've got the fuel cell tanks, and that's basically it. It's super simple, super straightforward. The technology has been around for decades, and manufacturers love it because it's so easy to install on the production line. Just by way of comparison, this is an electric car, and you can see the only major difference is the batteries that you have underneath the floor in this example. You'll also notice the batteries are way, way larger. This is where hydrogen fuel cells really come in because the technology is so much more compact than electric cars. And obviously, if you want more range and bigger batteries, more range and more battery capacity, you have to have bigger batteries. And there's a finite capacity on board cars to have this. It's far easier to scale hydrogen fuel cell, as we shall see. And this is quite a neat stunt that Hyundai did, which was amazingly banned by the ASA. They connected a big balloon to the tailpipe and started the car, kept it ticking over, filled it full of air, because in places such as central London, big cities, fuel cell cars do actually literally clean the air. They take in air, they've got loads and loads of filters, it has to be quite clean and tailored, which takes all the pollutants out of the air, and then out the back you've got pure clean air. Hyundai wanted to run a campaign with this, but the ASA said no, because technically, although it's clean out the tailpipe, emissions from brakes and tyres mean that it can't actually be called a car that cleans the air. I think that says more about the ASA than Hyundai and fuel cell tech, but there we go. At the moment, as we've seen, there are two fuel cell cars on sale. The first is the Mirai that we've seen. The second is Hyundai's Nexo. The Mirai costs about 50 grand. Surprisingly, this is actually smaller than the Mirai, but it costs more. That goes for about 70 grand. It's quite a cool looking thing, and yeah, both of them just drive like an electric car. If you didn't know it was a fuel cell, you wouldn't know. There's no difference in how they drive. And that's a Volkswagen ID.3 electric car. To fill that up, you have to use one of those IoT rapid chargers for around half an hour, or plug it into your wall box at home, and that takes several hours, or basically sit around for 45 minutes upwards. With a fuel cell car, it is just absolutely like filling a petrol or diesel. Just plug the filler in the side, wait a few minutes, and then it's full. There's no difference. I've actually done this on several press trips, and it's so straightforward. We had half an hour to demonstrate how easy it is to fill, and for 25 minutes we're standing around because there was nothing to teach us. Incidentally, in the background you'll see the hydrogen fuel cell station. It's a bit hard to see, but this is basically a shipping container full of hydrogen fuel cell, hydrogen filling technology and all the hydrogen on board. The companies basically stick this on the back of a truck and ship it to wherever they need it. It doesn't require special developments at filling stations. You can just package all this into one box and store it where you will. Just out of interest, that's the filler. You screw it on and clip it on, and it's super safe and doesn't release any hydrogen. And this is underneath the Toyota Mirai, just to show you how hydrogen fuel cell tanks can be packed in. In the middle, we've got one where the exhaust pipe normally is. At the back, there's one where the petrol tank normally is. These are getting smaller and smaller all the time as well. And you'll notice they're a bit of a funny colour. That's because, mindful of Hindenburg, these are ridiculously strong. They're made out of carbon fibre and Kevlar and goodness knows what. When we go to events, they'll always tell us that they can shoot bullets at them and they won't puncture. It's just crazy, crazy safe. They are just some of the most strongest part of the car, without a doubt. Given all that, what's not to like? Well, this is where there is a problem, and this is why it's so hard. Because of this, because of hydrogen fuel stations, the infrastructure simply is not there. It's a chicken and egg situation. We have a few cars, we simply don't have enough filling stations, and manufacturers won't scale up the rollout of cars until the infrastructure is there, and these companies won't be able to make any money until the cars are there to actually use them. And unlike EVs, you can't charge them at home, and you can't fill up with hydrogen at home. So if you don't have a filling station near to you, then you can't drive a fuel cell car, and that's the big problem, and this is why it's so hard. Just a few examples here. As a result of that, Toyota sold 10 Mirai last year. Hyundai sold 2 Nexo, compared to 190k electric cars, 14 filling stations compared to 28,000, and counting EV chargers. And on top of that, you have all the points at home. So electric wins. Fuel cells have not broken through. The momentum is with electric. Let's not underestimate the Tesla factor as well. Tesla is a cool brand. It's a great advert for electric cars. You've got Tesla superchargers everywhere. If Tesla arguably had have gone the fuel cell route instead of electrics, then maybe this would be a very different story. But without a doubt, it hasn't broken through yet. So all of that is about hype for electric passenger cars. There is a but, though, and this is where the hope comes in, and this is where it might be relevant to yourselves and your businesses. This is an electric bus. It's built in Snetterton in Norfolk. It's quite a cool thing. It's got a decent range. They're being pressed into service, as the colour suggests, in London, and they're scaling up. But I just thought I'd put a few numbers here. On board, it's got 543 kilowatt hours of battery. Now, a Vauxhall Corsa E has 50 kilowatt hours. So this is more than 10 times that. 10 times the cost, 10 times the raw materials as well that goes into it. It's just on a crazy scale compared to a passenger car. And that only gives you a 250-mile range. Charge time overnight, you're not going to charge those batteries particularly quickly, even with the most powerful of rapid chargers. And it costs twice as much as a diesel bus. And diesel buses are not cheap either. It's not just electric buses. We've got an electric truck here. This is a new Renault electric truck. It's a 16-tonner. This has only got 265 kilowatt hours of battery, so only 5 times the amount of that Corsa, to give you a 250-mile range. At best, as we know, if it's warm, you get better. If it's cold, it gets less. So it's not entirely fully dependable with electric cars. And even Renault, even though it's got this, which is one of the first electric trucks on sale, even Renault says that by the end of 2025, just about 10% of their sales will be electric trucks. They've got mega plans for cars, but trucks is way, way further down the line. This, however, is a fuel cell truck. It's called the Hyundai Exient, and it's the world's first heavy-duty fuel cell truck. On board, it's got 7 hydrogen fuel cell hydrogen tanks. They carry about 30 kilos of hydrogen. It's got 250-mile range, like the Renault, but instead of that taking hours and hours to charge, this can be filled up in 8 minutes. And also, it isn't the only fuel cell truck that Hyundai are developing. They're working on a big tractor unit, and that's going to have a 600-mile plus range. I mean, well over 600 miles. And these guys, Hyundai, knows fuel cell technology. It's got the Nexo, as we've seen, so this is coming to market pretty quickly. In fact, they're already being delivered in Switzerland. The company's targeting around 1,600 by the end of 2025, but more importantly, it's also focusing the tractor unit that's in development on North America and Europe, which, add them together, you've got a lot of scale there and a lot of potential for fuel cell trucks. But there are fuel cell vans as well. Stellantis, owner of Vauxhall, Peugeot, Citroën, amongst others, is the first to put hydrogen fuel cell Lcvs on the road. This one's the Opel Vauxhall Vivaro E hydrogen example. It's got a 1-ton payload and a 6.1 metre square cargo load. That's basically exactly the same as the diesel and the electric versions as well. Just to show you, fuel cells are popped under the floor. All the electric bits are in the front. In the back, you've got exactly the same load space, exactly the same practicality to chuck stuff in. As we've seen, this fuel cell filler here. This has a 250-mile range again. There's a theme developing here because that works out to 400 kilometres in Euro speak, which they like to stick to. But it can be refilled in 3 minutes. Vauxhall is speaking to big corporate fleets and other businesses now. Maybe some of your own fleet managers might be having discussions with Vauxhall about this because they're planning to launch it in early 2023, which will make it the first fuel cell light commercial vehicle on sale. I just thought I'd compare it to the pure electric version because there is actually a Vauxhall pure electric Vivaro E2. That has a range of around 200 miles from 75 kilowatt hours of batteries in the best case. And obviously, even with 100 kilowatt rapid charger, they will take 45 minutes to fill up, whereas this will be filled up in 3 minutes. In terms of logistics and efficiency and quick turnaround, that's a whole different scale that we're talking about. There's also a Citroën version that we see here, and a Peugeot version too. And interestingly, just to show how flexible hydrogen fuel cell tech is, all three have actually got an additional 10.5 kilowatt hour battery on board as well, which gives around a 30-mile range. And that's there as a get-out-jail-free. They recognise that hydrogen, if you don't have a depot near to you or you don't have facilities at your business, is tricky to fill up. So to ensure that drivers don't get stuck with an empty hydrogen tank, they've got the onboard battery just to get them out of trouble. And this is quite exciting too, and I thought I'd include this just to reinforce the potential of hydrogen in specialist applications. We can't see it yet, but this is the BAC Mono, which is a single-seater sports car that you can use on the road. It's super, super cool and was mega quick around the Top Gear test track a few years back. BAC, a company based in Liverpool, they're teaming up with Viritech, who are based at Mirai, to develop special low-volume cars using hydrogen fuel cells. They're doing this because compared to electric cars, electric batteries, they're lightweight, they're zero emissions, they're very flexible and affordable, perfect for a specialist sports car. And as the engineers behind this have said, it gets around the mass compounding effect. If you want more energy storage with an electric car, the heavier it becomes. You need more batteries, you need more weight, it swallows up your load space. It's the mass compounding effect. It simply doesn't work. Whereas with hydrogen, it's far simpler. You just add on an extra hydrogen tank if you need more range, or slightly big fuel cell if you need more power, or bigger motor. That's it. It's far simpler, far easier to scale. And it also gets around the raw materials problem as well. I'm sure many of us are aware there are question marks around lithium and cobalt and other rare earth materials with electric cars and electric batteries. If you've got 500 kilowatt plus electric batteries, that's a huge amount of raw materials. With a fuel cell, you need only a tiny amount, and it's far better for the environment. I just want to give the final word, not to me, but to Sir Jim Ratcliffe's INEOS. He is a big advocate of hydrogen. The company is actually launching a hydrogen advocacy scheme, and it's interesting, it's calling on the government to step up too. We've seen charging points start to roll out because the government wants us to all go green by 2030. Electric isn't the only way to do this. Hydrogen is as well. And if we've got similar government support to roll out hydrogen infrastructure, then it will help it scale far more quickly, particularly to help business fleets switch to hydrogen, because that is where the big potential is. To quote Sir Jim, he said, "Electric cars are ideal for city centres and short journeys, but hydrogen is much better for longer journeys and heavier loads." And he added, that requires immediate investment in hydrogen distribution and hydrogen filling stations. INEOS is sticking 2 billion into green hydrogen across Europe, and he wants governments to do the same. He added, "We believe hydrogen is the fuel of the future. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll agree that we should start believing that too." Thank you very much. Yep.
Green energy. A lot of hydrogen is made from carbon fuels, as I understand it. So is there an environmentally friendly way of making hydrogen?
There are several ways, and it all has different colours. You can get brown hydrogen, blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, and it's the green hydrogen aspect that certainly INEOS is focusing on, to do it in a sustainable way, to not use carbon oil and things, and to do it in a green and effective way. And that's where the big focus is, and they've got a Europe-wide initiative to do that. I think car companies are wedded to that idea as well, because they know that if they're using hydrogen that's basically made out of oil, that's not a good story to tell. So they want to go the green hydrogen route, certainly.
Very good. Any other questions for Richard?
Hi.
Bearing in mind we've seen electric cars coming and increasing in popularity for 5 or 6 years now, and if you take the Tesla superchargers out of the equation, the Europeans have done a terrible job of getting an infrastructure in place for high-speed charging on electric. This is apparently a lot more expensive to set up than electric, so how long realistically do you think it's going to take before we can go out and buy a hydrogen car and not run out?
It will take a lot longer, which is where the frustration comes in. Manufacturers have, as I said, had technology for ages, but the infrastructure hasn't followed. There hasn't been a great focus to roll it out, and that is still the challenge. But the hope is, because it is easier to install hydrogen filling stations, in its simplest sense, you've got them in a container pallet. That is how certainly oil companies could feasibly install them at their filling stations, and the throughput of filling up a hydrogen car, in that it takes a few minutes rather than 3 or 4 hours, means that far more cars can be served by that. In addition, there is the hope that with government incentives and other aid, large companies could install their own hydrogen filling facilities that could be opened for public use. I know certainly there's a project at Birmingham University that is doing this. They've got it for their own fleets, and they also let public use it with RFID tags and things. So there are several routes, but it is going to take a long time, no two ways about it, and it needs more cars on the road to make them work in terms of an economic point of view.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you very much.